taking away as many of the barriers and challenges as possible, that is how we're going to get people to turn out. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it's going to matter, but it truly does, because if you look at some of the numbers, and especially those local races, it comes down to the wire.
Literally.
It comes down to it.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Dan Parsons Show. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. I'm really looking forward to today's guest, Nancy Petitto, Executive Director of Civic Nebraska. As you may know, we're partnering with Civic Nebraska and Flatwater Free Press on their voter guides for this spring's city elections in both Lincoln and Omaha. Here's my conversation with Nancy. Enjoy. Well, it is my pleasure to welcome for the very first time to the Dan Parsons Show, Nancy Petitto. Nancy is the Executive Director of Civic Nebraska. And so welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe it's taken this long to be here.
I know it. Well, I tell some people, I'm recycling some folks that I've had on before, because the first alliteration of this podcast was called Pints and Politics. And so I apologize
Right.
I apologize for people who didn't get to go on Pines and Politics, because we literally did drink beer and talk politics.
I feel like you're going to owe me a beer after this.
I do. But just as a way of introduction, you're fairly new to the role as executive director. Congratulations, by the way. But you've been with Civic Nebraska for some time, and you've got quite a long-standing experience and tradition there at that great organization. So just give us the 411 elevator speech of Nancy Petitto.
Oh, that's always fun. Thank you so much for that. I, for a long time, I moved to Lincoln in 2001, and I got my bachelor in journalism, followed up with my master's in higher education administration. And I worked for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And I did not imagine ever leaving, quite honestly. And then I got bit by the nonprofit bug.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I came over to Civic Nebraska almost 7 years ago. It'll be 7 years ago in just a couple of weeks.
Oh.
I was originally hired on as the Collective Impact Lincoln program manager, and just instantly fell in love. I was able to do work in our 6 core neighborhoods in Lincoln and work with community members on just issues that they care about. And it was just something that I honestly did not know I could do for a full-time job.
Isn't that the best, when you realize that what you love can actually pay the bills and be satisfying? And
exactly.
Yeah.
So I did that for a few years, and then I moved into our Civic Health Programs Director role in 2021, and that was also very rewarding. Civic Health is really, when I talk about it with people, I think it's a phrase that can be a little confusing or nebulous to some folks, but it really just means building connections. It means, how are you showing up for your community and the folks that you really want to connect with across neighborhoods, or, your school community, or your Bible study, or your book club? So it's about building that civic health strength in a way that everybody has a place at the table. And so I did that for a couple of years. I'm still here at Civic Nebraska. And then we developed a new role called the Senior Director of Programs. And so I moved into that in 2024. And that was a great opportunity for me to really focus on the programmatic work here at the organization and find ways that we were collaborating across programs, supporting each other, and just streamlining a lot of our processes and the work that we're doing here. And then our founder and executive director of 16 years, Adam Warfeld, decided to move on from the organization. And I decided that I wanted to apply for that position, and I was honored to be selected and move into this role in late January.
That's great. That's great. Wow, that has been quite the whirlwind, hasn't it, for you? Gee whiz.
It was never really the plan, but here we are. So I'm embracing it.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. What a rich history you have with the organization and with the university. And you're obviously well suited to do what you do, Nancy. So I appreciate that very much. Yeah, a very respected nonprofit statewide organization. My notes say 30 full-time and 75 part-time staff, creating a more modern and robust democracy for all. I love that phrase.
Yes. It's really rewarding to do this work. And I think that when I talk about Civic Nebraska, the people who work here have a true passion for what we do, but we could never do this on our own. So the communities and the community members that we work alongside are really what makes this happen. And it's what makes the work move forward, because what we're trying to do here at Civic Nebraska is just make sure that people are a part of the processes that are impacting our lives on a daily basis. And for some people, that means they're showing up to the state capitol building and they're testifying. For other people, that means they're planning a block party and they're finding ways to, again, like I said, build that civic health, connect with their neighbors and their community members. So I'm just thoroughly impressed with everything that we'll do as an organization and the people who are willing to partner with us.
Yeah. Well, you've got a great team. You've built a great organization, and without going on editorializing too much, I mean, needed now more than ever. So thanks.
You. Yeah.
Okay. Because you are my first time guest, we've got a set of kind of 4 get to know you questions, and for our audience, and then you get to fire one back at me. So if you're ready, let's do this.
Here we go.
Yeah. These will be the most difficult questions of the day, Nancy. No, they won't. Question number 1, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a very small town in upstate New York. So 2 hours north of Syracuse, closer to Canada than to New York City, which usually when I tell people I'm from New York, I have to specify upstate. Yeah. Because when you say you're from New York, people just automatically assume you're from the city.
The city, yeah. Big difference. Big difference. Yeah. Question number 2, what was your dream job as a kid?
So I love this question, and it's often an icebreaker that I feel like gets asked in a lot of meetings. So when I was really young, I wanted to either be a teacher or a singer. And then I realized that I was not cut out for either of those roles. When I got older, music was always a huge part of my life growing up and still to this day. I wanted to be a rock journalist. I wanted to write for Rolling Stone magazine. Nice. And High Fidelity is one of my favorite books and movies. And I worked at Homer's Records all through college and got my journalism degree and am not a journalist, and I'm certainly not a rock journalist, but that was my dream job for a long time.
Wow. Homer's. You met some wonderful people at Homer's, didn't you?
I did. I met some amazing people, and some interesting folks along the way.
There's a whole other podcast. But by the way, we do on Fridays, we do the Friday Afternoon Club, and I have my best bud, Chef Kevin Shin, come in, and that's some of the stuff we do there. We did an episode with Pete and the Zoo Bar crew, so back when I had the radio show. So you're hitting me where I live. Okay, let's keep this going. Question number 3, and answer this any way you like. The most famous person you've ever met.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I could not think of anyone maybe traditionally famous.
Yeah, it's okay.
But when I was in college, I wrote for the Daily Nebraskan, and so pursuing my rock journalism, my rock journalist lifestyle there. And I interviewed Jenny Lewis, who is not only a musician, singer, and was at the time the lead singer of Rilo Kiley, a band that was on Saddle Creek Records, but she was an actress for a long time too. She was in a movie called Troop Beverly Hills. In like the late 80s, she was in The Wizard with with Fred Savage. So I interviewed her, and then they played a show at Sokol Underground. And I got to meet her in person, and I was just like, as a 19-year-old, college kid, I was like, yeah, that was awesome.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay. Well, this will be fun. Keeping with the music theme, I've gotten some great questions or great answers to this question. The very first concert you attended?
Yeah. I was 12.
Nice.
In 6th grade, and my parents took me and my 2 older brothers to a Rolling Stones concert.
Oh, no way.
In Syracuse, New York, at the Carrier Dome. Terrible seats. I mean, like, just way up there. You could barely see anything. They had a big screen and everything, so you could try to follow along. But it was probably in like 93 or 94 or something like that. And they still made me go to school the next day. I was so tired. I was exhausted, but I had this really cool Rolling Stones t-shirt, the graphic with the tongue and everything.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that was awesome. And ever since then, I have just been a concert junkie. And so that's something my husband and I love to do, is go to shows. So.
Well, we need to do this mashup, because the other person recently that answered that question the same way, Jean Stothert, mayor of Omaha, was her first concert, the Rolling Stones.
No way.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that so much.
Yep. Okay. Your one question back to me. Can be one of these or something completely different. I don't care.
Yeah. So this is a question we like to ask people who attend events that we host at Civic Nebraska is, what is one thing that you just love about your community? And your community can be whatever you want it to be for this question.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things. I was born and raised in and around Lincoln, and so I love this. I spent some time out west in Ogallala, middle school and high school, but came back here, went to university, J school, the whole thing, and here since. So I love this city, and I guess what I would say about this community that I love the most. There's so many things. There's so many things. When I bring clients in, it's a small town, and I've spent enough time here, and I've got enough gray hair that I can walk down the street. I love bringing new clients in the town. They think I own the town because I can't go out on the street, and it's not me. It's just you get
it's Lincoln.
You got enough. It's Lincoln, and you just it's a small community. And there's things that piss us off living in a community like this, in that, when people come from out of town, all of the high school sporting events and everything, we get annoyed that they drive the wrong way on the one ways, right? Or we get annoyed that all these farm trucks are loading up the parking garage, and I can't get around as much as I'd like to. But those are the endearing things that I love about this community, and I love about this state, because most of us come from, other than people that come from New York and stay,
Yes.
the majority of us who live in this city, are from Nebraska, or from small town Nebraska. And so I just love living in a city that gives me everything I need, from entertainment and sports and obviously a successful career. But I just love the makeup of the people that make this city great. So anyway, it's kind of a long.
I love that. I feel the same way.
Yeah, it's great. Okay. As you know, and I think our listeners and viewers know by now, because I've been saying it enough these past few weeks, we are following the city elections in both Lincoln and Omaha. We covered the mayor's race, and we'll continue to cover the mayor's race in Omaha, and the city council, school board races here in Lincoln. And you all, along with our friends at Flatwater Free Press, are also have developed a voter guide. And so we're sharing these interviews with your staff and with Flatwater Free Press so we can help voters educate themselves on these very important races that are coming up. So we had primary this week. We've got the general election in just 4 weeks on May 6th. So maybe talk a little bit about the election, however you want to dive into that we had on Tuesday here in Lincoln, and your project, the voter guide, and what you're doing in your tradition of lifting up democracy, of educating voters for this city election.
Absolutely. Yeah. We, over the years, Civic Nebraska, we are a nonpartisan nonprofit. So we want to make sure that we are providing vital information to voters, whether that is, where is my polling place? Who is going to be on the ballot? What are the issues that I'm going to be voting for? So one thing that we have implemented over the years is it's called decoding the ballot. And for the most part, for the last several years, at least since I've been at Civic Nebraska, our voting rights team and our communications team has put together this decoding the ballot resource that really just explains, what does a city council member do? What are the qualifications? What does someone on the school board do? And so people can make an educated decision based on knowing what that role is, and then also find information about the candidates so they can choose who they think is best suited for that role. So for the most part, we would only really provide that level of information about the office itself. But then Matt Wynn and his team reached out to us and they were like, hey, what are we doing? We should do a voter guide together and, be able to provide a little bit more information about the candidates and the issues in Lincoln and Omaha that folks are going to be voting on. And so we were like, yes, absolutely. So it's taking our already existent resource of decoding the ballot, and it was just sort of elevating that and helping that evolve to the next level. And so we worked with the Flatwater team to come up with some questions for the Lincoln candidates. They really took the lead on the Omaha candidates, but we wanted people to be able to use that resource so they could make a well-informed decision about who are the best representatives for these roles that are running for office here in Lincoln and in Omaha. And it was just such a wonderful partnership. We partner with Flatwater Free Press on another program called Documenters, which maybe you've heard of.
Yes,
so,
love it. Yeah.
These are just really important and critical ways that we are continuing to, strengthen democracy, build civic health, build confidence in institutions across different platforms. And it just, for us, seemed like a total no-brainer to partner with this amazing media group that is doing so much in the journalism space. And, and it's just another layer, like I said, another layer of education that we can provide to folks in the Civic Nebraska sphere and network so they can go somewhere and find the information that they need ahead of the primary and general elections.
Totally, 100%, Nancy. I tell people this all the time. Flatwater Free Press is going to save journalism in this state. They're doing it. I had Matt on a few days ago. If our viewers and listeners haven't seen or heard that episode yet, I'd encourage you to go back and look at that. Matt Wynn, Executive Director of Nebraska Journalism Trust, the parent organization for Flatwater, and Documenters, and the Silicon Prairie News. They, with the demise, because I've spent my life, my career, helping my clients, candidates, office holders get known, or in some cases unknown, to the news media. And so I've spent a career building those relationships. And so it's so important. And Flatwater is certainly taking journalism to the next step that it needs to do, with, the advent of not only less journalists, but less trust from the public
Yes.
in what is considered news, because we can't even agree on what the hell the truth is anymore. And so we need more journalists, and we need more organizations like Civic Nebraska to help people understand what the issues are, who the candidates are, and how important it is to get out and vote. So thank you for doing that. Tell our listeners and viewers how they can access those tools through Civic
Absolutely.
Nebraska.
Yeah, it's on our website. We have what we call Election Central. You can find it right on our main page, which is civicnebraska.org, and it will take you to the voter guide, which is housed on a separate page that's hosted by Flatwater Free Press. We also launched something new this election cycle called the Ballot Builder.
I love the name. Great marketing.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's exactly what it sounds like. Surprise. We partnered with an organization that really wants to make sure people are voting in municipal and local elections. And so this is a tool that since this is sort of a pilot program for us, and this is the first time we've launched it, we are only focusing on Ballot Builder in Lincoln and in Omaha. But essentially, you access the Ballot Builder from our webpage again at Election Central, and you type in your address. And if you live in Lincoln or Omaha, you just type in your address, and it will show you exactly what's going to be on your ballot. It will show you depending on what district you live in. For me, for example, I didn't have a school board candidate to vote for.
Yep.
So that helped me know that when I show up and vote on primary election day, these are the only races that I'm going to be voting on, or this is the Lincoln on the Move that's going to be on the ballot for the primary, or the Lincoln for Fair Housing initiative that's going to be on for the general. And so it gives you a brief description of the candidates or the ballot initiatives that are on there. But that's why we want people to use the Ballot Builder to help them be prepared for when they're voting, and they can use it when they're voting at home or actually going to their polling location. But if they want to dig a little deeper, that's where that voter guide comes in handy from Flatwater. And so you can read the questions that between Civic Nebraska and Flatwater Free Press that we put together for those candidates, and you can really make an informed decision.
Yeah. Oh, that's so important. Everything that goes on in Washington, of course, that's what captures everyone's attention. That's what captures the headlines. But this is where democracy is most important, right here
100%.
in our hometown, and what's going on with the school board and the city council, and how are we paying for infrastructure, and it's just so important. And I guess feel free to comment on any of the results of the primary on Tuesday. But I guess one of the things that I wanted to just in this vein of in this conversation of trying to get more people involved and active in this process, just how disappointing it is. Nothing new, but just how disappointing the turnout was again on Tuesday, in the 20% of eligible voters, registered voters, actually bothered to show up on Tuesday. And boy, but you'd never know it listening and reading to social media, because everybody's bitching about something. And I can guarantee you a lot of those people didn't bother to vote, didn't even know there was an election on Tuesday. So anyway, there's my rant. It's my microphone, so I get to rant. But anyway, so how do we break through that and help people understand to get off their duffs and go vote?
It's a question we ask ourselves a lot here at the organization. It's a constant thing that we discuss. We know that there's going to be lower voter turnout in years like this, and especially during a primary election. But just like you said, this is where we can really make a difference. This is where we can make change happen. And through methods like voter guides, the Ballot Builder, just taking away as many of the barriers and challenges as possible, that is how we're going to get people to turn out. And being able to say, what is something that you care about that is going to impact you if you show up and vote in this election? And so we really just try to have as many conversations with folks as possible across across our communities so we can say, I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it's going to matter, but it truly does. Because if you look at some of the numbers, and especially those local races, it comes down to the wire. It comes down to it, a handful of votes. And so we've been able to utilize a couple of things here. If you really want to nerd out on voter turnout, we have a resource called, we have a funny little acronym for it. It's called the TROVE. It's the tool to reflect overall voter engagement. And it will show you voter turnout in presidential election years for 2020, 2024. And you can look across the state of Nebraska and see voter turnout in counties, cities, census tracts. You can really dive down to the granular level, demographics, different population offsets. It's super interesting. I think first we have to look at the data. We have to look at what the numbers are, who is voting, who is turning out, who is not, and then start to dig a little bit deeper into, okay, now why? Where is this either apathy or this idea that my vote's not going to make a difference? Where is it coming from? And what kinds of things do we need to start having conversations around to change that idea and make sure people are understanding that it truly can make a difference? And we want that to be just the most basic, low barrier way of civic engagement possible.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here. That's really good. Anything else about the city elections you want to? I want to move on to some of the things that you guys are working on elsewise. So
we can move on.
Okay. So what is going? I mean, obviously we're in the long session of the legislature, 90-day. We got the budget coming up, all kinds of activities over there, and I know you guys are knee deep in it. So what's going on at the Capitol?
Yeah. That's an understatement. Yeah, yes, we are. Yeah. We are in the legislative session. So, there's a lot going on. There's a lot that we are paying attention to. Some bills that would disenfranchise voters that we are having to make sure do not move forward. But, during a time when there are a lot of things that are not going well, we had a win yesterday. We had something that we can celebrate in that LB3 introduced by Senator Lauren Lippincott to change our split electoral system to a winner-take-all system failed on the floor. And so, I mean, that doesn't mean that we're done, right? That doesn't mean that
it's never done.
It's never done.
No.
It's never done. But we saw true civic engagement and civic involvement happen with the hundreds of thousands of folks who showed up to some of the listening sessions that we helped plan in Fremont, Seward, and Ralston, and then calling and emailing their state senators to say, this is not what Nebraska wants. This is not a vote representative for each person in our state.
Yeah. You talk about direct democracy. I mean, what a better example. Yeah.
And for us, this is not a partisan issue. This is not something that comes down to one side versus the other. This is nonpartisan across the board. This is making sure everyone's vote counts. And we just feel really honored that the senators who voted against it took that information to heart, and hearing from their constituents and just all of the folks who reached out and put in all of that work and effort, because without that, we can't be successful in these kinds of measures.
Yeah. It got a lot of attention, obviously, last year before the presidential race, even got national attention.
It sure did.
And democracy won. And as you said, I mean, this has been an ongoing issue for 30 years, however long it's been around. And, from a marketing standpoint, I think, and I didn't follow it close enough to know who made these arguments and who didn't, but the uniqueness, there's not a lot of uniqueness. We don't have mountains. We don't have oceans. We've got a football team and the most unique legislative body in America.
There you go.
And guess what? We have a unique system that brings democracy closer to the voters by allowing these electoral votes to be divided up. And,
well said. Exactly.
Somebody who has worked on political campaigns and been in agencies that place advertising, it's a damn good money driver for the state.
That did come up in the conversation on the floor yesterday.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm glad. But so the filibuster worked. It didn't get enough votes to overcome the filibuster, so it's done. I assume the speaker will not put it back on the agenda. That's kind of I think what he has said. But what about the ballot issue? Is it a CA or was it?
Yeah, it's a constitutional amendment to put it to the vote of the people, and we're keeping an eye on it. We're going to see where that goes, if it has any traction. But we're hopeful, that won't move forward. And again, we just have to be diligent. Oftentimes in this work, we're on the defense, and we're hoping that our legislators are listening to the people who are contacting them and saying that this isn't something that we want, at this point or anytime in the near future.
Yeah. As we wrap up, Nancy, I wanted to give you an opportunity. You've got a big event coming up, another Civic Saturday, which I've attended in the past, and I encourage our audience to look into this. So talk about Civic Saturday that's coming up.
Absolutely. So Civic Saturday is just a wonderful gathering for people who want to find ways to connect with other civically engaged folks. Or if you haven't been so civically engaged and you really want to find ways to connect with other people in your community. And so our next Civic Saturday is planned for Saturday, April 26th at 11 a.m. at First Plymouth Church in the Mayflower Hall, which is downstairs in the basement. They have been a wonderful partner, allowing us to use their space to host these events. And it's just, I've been to almost all of the Civic Saturdays that we've hosted as an organization. Steve Smith, our communications director, is the one who brought these to Nebraska.
Yes.
And every time I leave a Civic Saturday, I leave feeling hopeful and optimistic. And, it's not all roses and unicorns and rainbows, but there are ways that we know we can show up for each other. And Civic Saturday is a way to, bring back that power to yourself, to your community, and identify what ways you can get engaged and involved, and maybe just be around some people who are like-minded and want to find ways to, to be together in these times that are a little uncomfortable and just unsure.
Yeah. No, it's you'll leave encouraged, I guarantee.
There.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Nancy Petitto, Executive Director of Civic Nebraska, thanks for spending some time with our audience today.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise. Remind us once again how we can find a ballot builder and the voter guide and all there is to know about Civic Nebraska.
Absolutely. Just go straight to our website, civicnebraska.org. We have right at the top bar there, you'll see Election Central for 2025. That's where you can find all of that voter information. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to find us that way, just at Civic Nebraska, and you'll get all the information that you need.
Very good. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks for your work. And we'll do this again someday.
Yes, with beers.
With beers. Yes, ma'am. Well, after that conversation, I'm even more impressed with the leadership of Nancy Petitto at Civic Nebraska. Nancy, thanks for joining the pod today. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Chase Porter, who produced this episode. Penology Tech Solutions for their technical help and equipment. Kim Remington, Parsons Public Relations Director of Operations. But most importantly, I want to say my sincere thanks to each of you for listening and viewing this podcast. Don't forget to hop on over to the YouTube page and hit the subscribe button. That's the show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.